Una notte dice che si sognò questa figura.
Massimo Monti. One night she dreamt of a dark-skinned figure dressed in white who said to her, "I am Restituta. I am giving you this child. The candle flames shine bright. The bands fill the air with festive tunes, and the community gathers for a deeply cherished celebration full of traditions. One of the most evocative moments is the parade by sea, where the statue of Saint Restituta is taken by boat along the coasts as the sunset colors the sky. The entire town lines the shores, celebrating the saint with prayers and songs. A unique experience that combines religious devotion with the natural beauty of the place. Dressed in white, Saint Restituta, the saint who came from the sea. The women of the town would gather in the church's large courtyard for the Saint Restituta's fair. For over 3 days, the churchyard was transformed into a lively marketplace where the women of Lacco Ameno showcased their handmade crafts. In this occasion, local culture and creativity merged, offering everyone a chance to celebrate the richness of their local traditions. Antonietta Masturzo, longtime sacristan of the Basilica. We used to have the fair, and we'd spend all winter preparing for it. I would make little crafts, doilies. Women would donate raffia baskets, and in the big courtyard, we would gather for the 3-day fair to earn money. The fair was the prelude to the religious celebration, a social occasion that strengthened the sense of community in Lacco Ameno. In the vast mosaic of Christian history, few figures shine as brightly as Saint Restituta. Raised in ancient Carthage and guided by Bishop Cyprian, her life was marked by one of the darkest events of the Roman Empire, the persecution of Diocletian. In 304 AD, while secretly celebrating the Eucharistic sacrament in the city of Abitina, the peaceful ritual was abruptly interrupted by Roman soldiers. Among these brave Christians was Restituta, whose faith would lead her to martyrdom. Father Pasquale, parish priest of the Basilica of Santa Restituta, recounts those moments.
There
were about 50 martyrs discovered during the Eucharistic celebration who were arrested and put on trial, as recounted in the Acts of Martyrs. Alongside their names, including that of Restituta, the story tells of these Christians gathered with their priests, Saturninus, and even some children. It was a tight-knit community arrested for refusing to surrender their holy books. Their response was unanimous. Sine Dominico vivere non possumus. We cannot live without the Sunday celebration. It's a beautiful message showing how the Eucharistic sacrament is the heart of Christian faith. The fate of Saint Restituta ultimately culminated in an extraordinary act of faith. Condemned to die in the flames, she was placed on a boat filled with tow and pitch, but destiny had a miracle in store. The flames that meant to engulf her spared her, as an angel guided her across the waves to the island of Ischia. In the spot where her boat touched shore, the ground was covered in white lilies. a symbol of her purity and the miracle of her survival. A heavenly sign that has inspired generations and deepened the community's faith in the saving power of saints. In times of uncertainty and danger, the sailors of Ischia turned to Saint Restituta, seeking protection on the often turbulent waters. It is in these prayers of the fishermen, their hopes and fears, that the devotion to Saint Restituta comes alive, becoming a beacon of faith, guiding them through storms. This sentiment is emphasized by sociologist Noemi Iacono in her thesis on cultural anthropology, Restituta d'Africa, the saint who came from the sea, between ancient representations and contemporary revisions. Noemi Iacono. Fishermen would invoke the saint in moments of difficulty, experiencing her miracle tangibly through an ex-voto, like a painting depicting the miracle that saved the captain and the fishermen. The saint was also invoked by the Rais and Tonnarotti of the Tonnara, a tuna fishing system in Lacco Ameno, as the structure of the trap itself had crosses within it, providing a sense of protection. Moreover, during festivities, there was a sea blessing, and she was invoked in difficult times not only during fishing but also by the people, especially when a family member was sick or had gone to war. It's a tradition that characterized not only Lacco Ameno but the entire island, showing resilience and adaptability over time. In Lacco Ameno's cultural context, the ex-votos dedicated to Saint Restituta represent tokens of devotion and gratitude throughout the centuries. Donated by the people for received graces, these sacred objects tell stories of hope and profound faith. Every piece, from simple medals to precious jewelry, is a personal tribute to the protector of Lacco Ameno and the whole island of Ischia. The celebrations in honor of Saint Restituta conclude in May, with moments of solemn reverence. On May 8th, the enthronement takes place, followed by a morning procession that officially starts the festivities off. One particularly heartfelt and well-attended event is on May 15th, when the statue of the saint is adorned with the ex-votos. This ritual, led by Massimo Monti, is not just a moment of decoration, but rather a profound act of memory and spiritual renewal that strengthens the bond between the community and its saint. During the festival, these treasures are displayed, becoming living symbols of the shared faith. So I sort of stumbled into this role of dressing the statue, almost by accident. You see, as a child, I would spend time at the church because my mother and other women were involved in its upkeep and organization. Little by little, I got closer to this tradition, partly out of curiosity, partly by chance. The person who did it before me was Franco De Siano. He had this great responsibility of dressing the saint. Gradually, he started involving me more and more, and when he suddenly passed away in 2011, the task fell on my shoulders, being the one closest to him, both for the tradition and in friendship. There's a whole ritual to how these objects are placed. Usually the first item to go on are the long necklaces around the neck, which are the oldest pieces. Then come the necklaces on the arms, followed by the bracelets on the statue's wrists. The final step is placing the ornaments behind her back and filling in any gaps with larger, more rigid bracelets. We use red ribbons to tie the ends of these pieces together in order to secure them, and we cover the knots with pins to hide them. Then the lily, palm, and crown are placed. The structure on which the statue of the saint is then carried has 4 columns on which other ribbons with rings tied to them are hung. Narrator. On May 17th, Lacco Ameno comes alive with a solemn procession of Saint Restituta. The devoted townspeople take turns carrying the statue through the streets, each participating with respect and devotion to this sacred duty. As the saint moves along Corso Angelo Rizzoli, adorned with her golden treasures, a shower of flower petals rains from now the colorful balconies, lovingly tossed by the many moved devotees. The town's band accompanies this procession with festive melodies, thus blending together music and community spirit. At the pier, the sky lights up with fireworks, marking the saint's passage by ferry. This journey across the waters to San Montano is a moment of reflection and spiritual renewal that ends with a salute to the place of her legendary landing. Upon returning to Casamicciola, the procession prepares to bring the statue back to Lacco Ameno, where it arrives at the church by sunset. A symbolic return that closes the ceremony in perfect harmony with the light. These moments of celebration, music, and fireworks are not only a tribute to the saint, but they also reinforce the bonds within the community, renewing their faith and commitment to their patroness and protector. Antonietta Masturzo recounts.
Un giorno, quando l'abbiamo vestita il 15,
The jewel on Santa Restituta's forehead. Once when we dressed her on the 15th, the priest forgot to place the small gem on her forehead. We call it il brillante. Well, a storm broke out. But it was so strong. It shook the churches and the houses, and a woman noticed something and she said, "She doesn't have her jewel." Well, as soon as we placed it on her, the storm calmed down.
Si calmò tutto.
Papella's story plunges us into the heart of Lacco Ameno's folklore. The tale of the missing jewel and the storm it triggered is a vivid example of how the community perceives and lives the presence of Saint Restituta. These details aren't just superstitions. They are golden threads woven into the social and cultural fabric of Lacco Ameno, symbols of a deep faith and an intimate relationship with all that is sacred. And that's just one of the many anecdotes testifying to the influence of Saint Restituta on the everyday life of Lacco Ameno people. Papella tells another fascinating story of the saint refusing to leave her town.
È arrivata a Lacco Ameno con lo
She landed in Lacco Ameno blown by the south wind. Her executioner tried to set her on fire, but in the end they were the ones who got burned while she arrived here safely. Lacco Ameno was a very small town at the time. We only had a little chapel, a small church. They said, "We need a better church. Let's bring her to Forio." So they started carrying the statue towards Forio, but they couldn't go on. As a matter of fact, now in that spot there are votive images of Saint Restituta and Saint Lorenzo. Anyway, they had to stop because the statue got too heavy to carry. "We have to go back, we can't carry her, let's take her to Casamicciola." But on the way to Casamicciola in Fundera Street, they had to stop again. There's a chapel there too, by the way. And they couldn't go further. But on the way back, she was as light as a feather. She came to Lacco Ameno and she wanted to stay here. Such a thrilling story. The stories about Saint Restituta are filled with legends and miracles. They are not just testimonies of faith, but reflections of the deep bond that ties the Lacco Ameno community with their patron saint. Every anecdote, every miracle attributed to Saint Restituta represents a living connection between the divine and the everyday life. The people of Lacco Ameno place their trust in Saint Restituta in times of need, and their prayers have often been followed by events that cannot be explained by reason alone. The folk stories we are about to hear are testimonies of those who have had unique experiences, such as dreams and visions tied to Saint Restituta. These stories reveal the community's faith and devotion and have become an essential and important part of their spiritual heritage. Massimo Monti tells the story of a woman from northern Italy who, after many years of trying to conceive a child, dreamt of Saint Restituta giving her a baby, and later gave birth to her daughter. She brought her to the basilica to show her gratitude, and as a token of her appreciation and devotion, left a coral necklace with her ex-votos, and came back every year on May 15th. So one afternoon a taxi arrived and stopped in Lacco Ameno. Two ladies stepped out of it, and they were holding a baby girl in their arms, just a few months old. So they entered the courtyard and looked around, and then they came up to us and asked us if this was the church of Saint Restituta, who the priest was, if they could meet him, and they asked about the statue. So we showed them to the entrance of the church and told them that the statue could be found behind the altar. Our curiosity was aroused by the fact that suddenly the lady took off her shoes near the entrance door. She knelt down, took the little girl in her arms, and walked the entire aisle of the church on her knees until she reached the statue. We approached them and she asked us if we could open the glass where the statue was. So we did. And she gently put her little girl in Restituta's arms. After recovering from the emotional moment, she told us her story. She was from northern Italy, and unfortunately she couldn't have children. She had been treated for years and had even been to the States. She had tried everything to try and conceive. In the end, she just gave up trying, forcing herself to accept the fact that she was not going to ever be able to conceive. But suddenly, one night, she dreamt of this dark-skinned figure dressed in white who said to her, "I am Restituta. I am giving you this child." When she told her husband, he thought that she might have been delirious, so he contacted their family physician. He was surprised when he read her test results and consulted with another doctor and took other tests, but the results were clear. She was pregnant.
Incinta.
I remember she was wearing a pink coral necklace around her neck, which she then gave to the saint and is now kept with the ex-voto offerings. The woman and her daughter kept on coming on the 15th for many, many years. Some time ago, the Suor Orsola Benincasa Institute held some courses focusing on some events happening in Campania, and on the 15th of May, a few students came to visit and see the church and the statue. A friend of mine mentioned the story of the woman and her baby, and one of the students, a girl, got up and said, "It was me."
Sono io.
"I am her," said the girl years later, the child who had been carried into the church by her mother. We've explored the paths of faith in Lacco Ameno, amongst procession and flower petals, and felt the palpable devotion through the gesture of the faithful. Don Pasquale,
Beh, allora, volendo aggiungere qualche altra cosa, a conclusione.
Reflecting on the words of Pope John Paul II, as the Church of Ischia, we listen, we welcome, and we love. The sacred books guarded by Restituta and her companions remind us that the first duty of a community is to listen, as faith is born from listening. Then comes welcoming. When we listen and understand the Word of God, the community lives and bears the fruit. And the first fruit is the fruit of hospitality and love. And only those who love can truly welcome others. And finally, love. Love that is born from listening, love that allows us to overcome conflicts, and especially in times like ours where word dominates everything. Love becomes the dialogue. Love becomes the search for the truth, the good of all, and the respect for one another. Love is the very essence of what Jesus has taught us. And as a Christian community, we must reflect about this. Saint Restituta, she's not just a saint, no, the devotion cannot be a private relationship. It's a great message for the entire Christian community of Ischia. Beautiful Crowned Aphrodite, a journey into the stories of Lacco Ameno, a podcast by RMS for the municipality of Lacco Ameno, produced by Studio A, written by Antonello De Rosa and Pietro Censino Di Meglio, English voice and translation by Aurora Cecchi, sound design, music and post-production by Luigi Menni Mennella, audio supervision by Francesco Rando, producer Pietro Censino Di Meglio.
Hai ascoltato Afrodite dalla Bella Corona, viaggio sonoro nelle storie di Lacco Ameno. È un podcast RMS per il comune di Lacco Ameno, prodotto da Studio A, scritto da Antonello De Rosa e Pietro Censino Di Meglio, voce Luigi Mennella, sound design, musica e post-produzione Luigi Mennella, supervisione audio Francesco Rando, producer Pietro Censino Di Meglio.